The officers shattered the midnight silence. 2 patrol cars sat idling on the front lawn, their red and blue lights sweeping across the old man's rose bushes. Behind them, the HOA president snapped orders. She was convinced she had him cornered over a wooden gate. Arthur Vance did not beg. He did not raise his voice. He simply glanced at his watch. Most people would panic when police showed up unannounced. Arthur knew better. He understood that a single step across his threshold without proper authority could end careers for good. Welcome back to Echo Stories. Stay with us, because what happens when that door is answered will forever alter this neighborhood. The digital clock on the lead cruiser flicked to 2100 hours as the vehicles rolled onto the grass. Emergency lights pierced through Arthur's darkened living room. He stood motionless behind lace curtains, his silhouette as rigid as the ancient oak trees encircling his property. Outside, the low rumble of engines filled the night air. Linda, the HOA president, stood between the cruisers, clutching her clipboard tightly to her chest, her gaze fixed on the wooden fence. Earlier that afternoon, she had spent 3 hours on the phone with a contact at the county environmental office, obtaining verbal confirmation she planned to wield as leverage if the police showed any hesitation. She didn't merely want the fence removed, she wanted the man who built it to submit to her authority. The rookie officer, his uniform still crisp from the academy, didn't wait for guidance. He strode up the porch steps and pounded on the solid oak door with excessive force. In his other hand, he held his smartphone aloft, recording everything for the body camera. Then the officer froze. On the screen was not an elderly homeowner in person, but a live video feed. A silver-haired man with the stern expression forged by decades on the bench stared back coldly, 30 years of judicial rulings etched into his features. Sergeant Miller glanced at the screen and felt his stomach plummet. The unmistakable face of the county's Chief Justice filled the display. "Sergeant Miller," the voice rang out across the porch, calm, yet carrying the weight of absolute authority in the surrounding silence. The judge wasted no time on pleasantries. Miller's face went ashen. He instantly recognized the catastrophe he had stumbled into by relying on the HOA president's assurances.
The man on that screen could dismantle his pension with one phone call. The rookie instinctively stepped back, his hand dropping from his belt. Miller shook his head, already calculating the inevitable disciplinary consequences. Linda, however, remained completely unaware of the gravity. She stormed toward the porch, heels clicking sharply on the stone, trying to push past the officers. To her, the man on the phone was just another hurdle. "The bylaws are clear," she shrieked. She jabbed a finger toward Arthur's phone. "I don't care who you're talking to, Arthur." The judge said nothing. That silence was far more terrifying than any outburst. Finally, Sergeant Miller grabbed the rookie by the shoulder. "We're leaving," he muttered, eyes lowered. The officers retreated swiftly, reversing their cruisers so quickly that gravel sprayed across the street. Within seconds, the flashing lights and sirens vanished into the night. Linda stood alone on the lawn, gripping her clipboard until the plastic warped. "Right," she hissed. "He might guard your door, but he can't override county code." She spun on her heel, climbed into her car, and sped away. Arthur stepped onto his porch, the phone still glowing in his hand. The judge gave a single solemn nod before ending the call. Arthur gazed at the fence. Something still felt off. Morning arrived with deceptive tranquility. Blam blang, the growl of a diesel engine echoed down the street. Arthur carried a tray of Earl Grey tea to the porch and sat down just as Linda marched up the driveway once more. This time she was accompanied by 2 workers in orange vests and a man in a tailored suit, Marcus. She brandished a neon yellow document and began reading it aloud, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. Arthur poured his tea slowly. "Leo," he called to his grandson, "bring out chairs for the neighbors." Neighbors began to gather. Linda thrust the paper forward. "This." Arthur examined it without taking it from her hand. Then he smiled, a small, knowing smile. "It's..."
An excavator lurched forward. Arthur returned moments later carrying a metal detector. The device shrieked almost immediately. He dug. 1 meter down, the spade struck metal, a brass disc embedded in reinforced concrete, a federal survey marker. Sergeant Miller, who had arrived to oversee the abatement, stared into the hole and froze. "Federal point," he whispered. The excavator shut down instantly. Linda screamed in frustration. Arthur spoke calmly. "Federal law." Marcus panicked and frantically pulled up digital maps on his tablet. Arthur unrolled authentic vellum blueprints, signed, dated, and bearing his own survey marks.
"You altered the city database," Arthur said quietly. The crowd gasped. Sirens returned, this time federal. Marcus was arrested on the spot. Linda was stripped of her HOA authority. The neighborhood collectively exhaled in relief. 30 days later, the fence stood rebuilt, stronger than before. Neighbors came together to paint it. Arthur smiled. "The ground doesn't choose sides," he said. The fence gleamed fresh white in the sunlight. Some boundaries endure because they must, and some truths simply cannot be moved. Justice, after all, is rarely loud, but it always lasts.